Welcome to For Real I Do with Brittany Ellis, the unfiltered side of weddings. From planning truths to vendor insights to navigating design, culture, and family dynamics, this is for couples who crave clarity and vendors ready to elevate. Your insider pass with just a little oversharing. It's the week of your wedding, trucks are loaded, families flying in, food is being prepped, and you've just been notified that your venue is unable to host your occasion anymore because there's actually a storm that is coming in and requiring a mandatory evacuation. This was my client's reality until our team, alongside the support of the vendor partners and the venue, flipped her entire occasion around and moved her wedding in less than 48 hours. The celebration must go on. She was sipping champagne with her bridesmaids while our team turned chaos into a seamless celebration. And that's what we're talking about today. That's the real ROI on wedding planning. And we're going to be breaking down exactly what that investment gets you. So today we're talking about something that couples I feel struggle with still, which is interesting to me that we're still having this conversation, but I'm here for you. It's hiring a full service wedding planner, and is the cost worth it? So, if you're investing six figures or more into your wedding weekend, you're probably wondering if another line item in your budget makes financial sense, which I totally get. You're thinking that if I can hire my own venue and vendors, most of the work is done, right? Wedding planning feels like something you should be able to handle yourself. And a little tip, when you've hired your venue and your vendors, the wedding planning can now begin. So, what I've learned after hosting hundreds of luxury celebrations, the question isn't whether you can plan your own wedding, it's whether you can afford to not hire exceptional support. Today, I'm breaking down the real ROI of wedding planning, from the months behind the scenes to the day of magic that lets you actually enjoy your investment. So, the first thing we're going to be talking about today is the pre-wedding ROI, right? So, we're going to talk about the things that happen in all the months leading to your actual event day. So, one of the very first things that I have talked about in previous episodes is venue fatigue and time projection. So, if you are newly engaged, you're obviously excited, right? You're going to start thinking about, where are we going to host this location? And you're going to randomly reach out to a bunch of different properties, collect a bunch of information that is just going to take up storage in your inbox. But it's useful, right? I get it. I'm not shaming you. I know that you want to get some initial information just to get an understanding of how much things may cost or what have you. And that's totally fine. Really, what a wedding planner does, or a full service wedding planner does, is they come in and they have more of an intentional conversation with you. So they're going to talk about all the things, right? What is the expectations when it comes to the style of venue you're looking for? What is the location? What is the guest count? How many different events are you looking to host? What's the hospitality or the food and beverage that you're going to be tying to that course of that weekend? What are the design expectations? What are some things that get you excited about for the overall weekend? What is the gifting experience for your attendees going to look like? And all the miscellaneous things in between, right? Typically, a wedding planner would then give you somewhat of an estimate or an all-in investment of what you're going to be expecting to spend for that wedding weekend. What are we pricing out? We're pricing out the dream wedding, right? So this really is gold, because this framework is literally what supports your original North Star, which is your intention that we talk about in previous episodes, right? While ensuring that all the decisions are in alignment with this outline. So a green flag is if a planner is discussing budget numbers with you up front. Okay. A red flag is if they're not really understanding what your comfort zone is and they haven't even actually discussed budget with you at all, because this, in my opinion, can be a huge waste of time, energy, and effort by prematurely selecting venues that you may fall in love with, but ultimately aren't going to be meeting all the criteria of what you're looking for. Because remember, when you hire a planner, you're getting their venue and vendor relationships and industry contacts. So we planners, we've seen it all, right? So because of this, we're able to guide that investment a little bit more and maximize it to its ultimate potential. Once the budget has been approved with you and your planner, then you can actually move forward with finding a venue that best suited for all of your needs and requirements. So, one of the biggest ROIs I feel in the early stages of planning is finding a venue that's not taking up too much of the pie. So, what I mean by that is you have budget allocations for all of these different vendor hires, and you're hiring anywhere between 15 to 20 different vendor professionals. So, you want to make sure that you select a venue that is not taking too much of the budget, but is going to overall enhance the guest experience, but that you have enough residual, right? You have enough left over to support with the rest of the investments that are going to come along the way. I feel having a planner protects the ability to book a date quickly in the desired time frame that you're searching for, maybe negotiate a better room rate for you and your attendees. And ultimately, I think just in general, planners who have seen venue contracts a lot, they are definitely not lawyers. I'm definitely not a lawyer, but they can give feedback on the agreements pretty quickly, especially if they've worked at those properties before, because they simply just know what to look for, right? Like I know when I look at a venue contract and the very first page that I see is the outline of events, and I see that the venue hasn't actually indicated what time I get access to that event space, I know that's a red flag for me. I need to ask, what does the load in look like for my vendors? Are they only going to get 3 hours to set up the month up? I mentioned this in previous episodes, but I think it's incredibly important that you have a lawyer if you'd like to look over your agreements because it's a pretty big contract, but having someone at least as a wedding planner to review on a high level and give some supportive feedback, I think personally is a huge return on your investment of why you would hire them in the first place. And if I didn't mention this before, which I think is important to mention, is just the stress reduction value, right? So, one of the biggest ROIs is that you can't put a price on your mental health and your relationship during this time. I know you're probably laughing, but you're engaged for such a short period of time, and couples who plan alone report higher stress and more arguments and less enjoyment in their engagement period. And so when you allow the professional to handle the details, you get to focus on each other and actually enjoying the season of your life and be more intentional with this big step you're about to make in your relationship. So now let's talk about timeline logistics and management. So you're hiring, as I mentioned before, anywhere between 15 to 20 plus professionals. It is so much more critical than just saying, this is what time my ceremony starts and this is what time I need things to be set by. You're having to coordinate loading dock schedules, right? Who's arriving at what loading dock? Depending on your property, they may have multiple loading docks. And so making sure that your vendors are not all arriving at the same time, the loading docks are getting congested. They're kind of freaking out because they're not able to unload their products at certain times. The caterer didn't get access to the kitchen earlier than he thought he would. So all these different little nuance points are important because ultimately they are going to directly tie to the experience that you're going to get on site, right? So you're probably thinking, can I just put a timeline together and essentially hire someone to oversee it? For all my type A brides out there, I get it. You most likely are probably able to say, okay, if my ceremony starts at this time and I need things to set by this time, and then they're going to get into loading dock. I mean, if you really want to get into that nitty gritty of your production schedule, like go for it. But I can say for myself and maybe any other planner out there that I would not jeopardize my reputation following a plan that somebody else put together when it was their first time doing it. I feel like it's the equivalent of feeling sick and taking a trip to the doctor's office who isn't a doctor, but they're going to somehow like look up your symptoms on ChatGPT and like help you through it and maybe you'll start feeling better. It's like maybe it's a Band-Aid, but ultimately like what is the risk that you're running if things don't go the way as planned, right? Because the real ROI happens in the problems that you essentially are not going to think of, right? I mean, that's ultimately like anybody can come in and essentially follow a timeline and hope for the best, but it's in the little snags that happen and you shouldn't be an expert on those, right? Because you're not planning your wedding every day. You haven't hosted or supported with hundreds of events in the past that you just kind of know what to look out for. For example, did you know that if you're hosting your event outside on grass, not turf, and it rains the day prior, and it's a pretty heavy rain, okay, and then maybe it rained through the night, and your ceremony's the next morning, and vendors are starting to load in. Well, we all know what happens to grass when it rains, and then you try to step on it, right? It turns into mud. So Plan B tents are not cure-alls. Plan Bs are not cure-alls. And having an expert planner who can support in navigating through not just Plan B, but what is Plan C? What is Plan D? Ensuring that you feel the most in control regardless of what direction the weather decides to turn is really what I feel that peace of mind is and what gives you in the planning process. Because you're able to know that on the wedding weekend, if things go awry with the weather, that you've already had a dedicated professional that's going to walk you through what that exact scenario is going to look like and how that's going to play out. Real example is I one time had a wedding, and this was earlier in my career, and we had put together a tent, and it was a beautiful tent. Everything looked great. Ceremony went wonderful. People were enjoying cocktails. And at the start of cocktails, it actually started to rain, and it rained actually really heavy. It was projected on these lovely weather apps, which if you should hire a meteorologist. That's a completely different conversation. But on our weather apps, it looked like it was going to be clearing out pretty soon. Well, I'm chatting with, I forget which vendor it was. I want to say that it was the band. And he was like, listen, there's just no way, because it actually started to flood like on the ground, right? Which was grass. And it was just like, it was going to be a disaster if those guests went in there, because it was just going to be mud everywhere. I mean, it was just going to ruin her moment. Bride in a white dress, by the way. So we decided as a vendor team that we just quickly were like, okay, this is the plan. We're moving forward. We're moving this thing inside. And it was just quick, quick, quick. We moved things inside and we were able to flip it in less than an hour, which was a miracle. But the whole point is that going into scenarios now, having those years of experience under my belt, I know the things that I need to be planning for in advance. And that really is what separates someone that is a good planner from an exceptional planner, because the exceptional planners have those real scenario, real life experience, real moments that they're able to say, okay, this is actually what I've seen in the past, and this is how we can prevent this from happening. A couple other things I want to talk about today is also design and experience. Beyond logistics, there's the experience value that I really feel like transforms your wedding from an event into an unforgettable celebration, right? So design cohesion is one of those things. I've actually started to steer away from the terminology of wedding planner and started to move towards event producer, because as exceptional as wedding partners are, they are so much more than that if they go through offering creative management services. So planners, I feel, can sometimes get a bad rap because there are planners out there that are what I call checklist planners. They have a checklist and they're just going through the motions, right? Did you hire a photographer? Okay, great. Did you confirm the timeline? Okay, great. Did you confirm your hair and makeup? Okay, great. That's part of the process, right? That's part of the journey. But ultimately, there's so much more than just the checklist planning. There's understanding that there's so much more that goes into preparing for certain scenarios and ensuring that the design cohesion plays out. So let me give you a little bit of an example. If you have your DJ providing you with the lighting for your event, and then you have your florist bringing in the floral and maybe the mandap structure or the gazebo structure, whatever it is. And then you have someone else that's providing like the rental furniture. And then someone else is coming to wrap the dance floor. Whatever the various vendors look like, the event producer, okay, AKA the wedding planner, is the glue that holds that cohesive look together, because nobody else on site, everyone's staying in their lane, right? The DJ's not going to be concerned, as he shouldn't be, with what the florist is doing. And the florist isn't going to be concerned with what the DJ is doing. And so ultimately, if you don't have someone that's like gluing those things together, you could have a very disconnected design. And I think it's very important for just design cohesion to make sure that you have a planner that's involved in those conversations. So let's kind of move into the final segment of this podcast, which is talking about day of management. And then I do want to do a little fun breakdown of the financial ROI breakdown. Okay. So let's talk about the wedding itself, where the ROI really, in my opinion, becomes essentially the most obvious. So the first one is timeline execution. So your wedding day involves hundreds of moving pieces, y'all. And it happens in precise sequence. So event producers, also known as wedding planners, manage vendor arrivals, coordinate setup timings, ensure seamless transitions between the ceremony, the cocktails, the reception. And without this orchestration, delays compound and your evening runs hours behind. Literally, I have heard about this from venue partners of mine where they're like, the bride was 2 hours late to get into the ballroom and we couldn't start her formalities. Guests didn't eat till 11 o'clock at night. These are the types of things that happen. And I'm pausing for a moment just to say, it is a shame when those things happen and no one deserves for those things to happen. But unfortunately, if you have someone that isn't really experienced and didn't put an effective timeline together, you're only going to feel that moment of, oh man, maybe like we probably should have got that other planner, or like we probably should have invested more in a management team. And there's nothing you can do then. It's a one shot. You've either went with the right partner or you didn't. And unfortunately, you're going to feel the effect of that on the day of your wedding. You only get one shot to get it right. And I, the reason that I literally do these podcasts, the reason that I even went into business is because I felt that couples deserved to have information and knowledge to make the most informed decisions possible for their wedding day. So even if you're not hiring me, even if you're not hiring a planner in general, or maybe you just financially cannot afford that investment, whatever the reason is, for me, I just feel like if you're going to have a celebration where you're going, if you're one of my brides out there and you're spending 6 figures or more on your event and you're not having someone to support and protecting those memories, I really think you need to reconsider. Okay. So if I didn't harp on that enough, I'm just harping on it for a moment. So because quite frankly, your vendors also deserve support, right? If they show up to the wedding day, they're not going to want to tiptoe and ask you questions because you didn't hire a planner to support on the day of, and they're needing a sense of direction or they have a question. They're not going to want to be like, hey, I don't want to bother you, but right. I mean, ultimately you're becoming the point person or your parents are, and vendors deserve to have a point of contact that they can come to if for quick questions, changes, if there's a delays, like they need to be able to rely on somebody that they can show up to their best occasion. Ultimately, a couple other things I think worth mentioning is the family and VIP management. So it's an emotional day for your family. I have a son and I know that when it's his wedding day, I don't want to be worried about literally anything other than just being with my baby boy for his day, taking pictures with him, being fully immersed in that full experience because I know being in this industry and I'm sharing with you listening to this podcast, it goes by literally in the blink of an eye. It is gone so quickly. And your VIPs, your parents, your siblings, your immediate family need special attention, right? They deserve also to know what time do I need to be dressed? Where do I need to be for photos? What's next? And they need to also have a point of contact or a point person that they can ask these questions to because they don't want to ask the bride and groom. Nobody wants to bother the bride and groom. You shouldn't be bothered on your event day, right? This is a certain day that just once in your life, there's going to be very small moments in your life where it's fully about you. And this just happens to be one of those days. And so I think that it's really important for someone to have a point person, whether it be vendors or whether it be your VIPs that they can go to and ask questions for. And then lastly is just memory protection. So I spoke about this earlier, but this for me is the intangible ROI that matters most. So you actually get to be fully present on your own wedding day. You're not worried about vendor schedules or family drama. You're not checking your watch, troubleshooting things. You're able to be fully present in the moments that you've invested essentially so much to be able to be there to create. Okay. So last thing I want to do, just a fun little exercise, is financially break down the ROI. Okay. So let's talk numbers. Is wedding planning actually profitable for your budget? So direct savings cost, venue and vendor negotiations, or feedback. Depends, y'all. I really feel like I need to clear the air that gone are the days where a wedding planner is going to come in and save you 15 to 20% off your contracts. That just is not in alignment with reality. And I actually am not the planner that's going to come in and ask your photographer to give 20% off his contract simply because I value that photographer's time. I value actually what they're charging because I know that they're exceptional in what they do. So instead, I may say to that vendor, hey, this is my client's target investment for photography. This is the days in which they're working their wedding. And then that is going to be a single conversation with me and that other vendor. Maybe that other vendor can't offer that they're the person that's on site for that event. Maybe it's their second shooter that's on site for that event, but they're able to vouch for the quality of that work and they're able to support us in reducing their costs slightly to come in alignment with that. Again, it really just depends simply because there's peak season and there's off season. And if they're a very well sought after vendor in particular, their peak season, they're most likely going to get booked out at their full fee. And so it really just depends on what they can negotiate, but they definitely usually will have some sense of a relationship that they're able to go to the venue and vendors to see if there's any potential cost savings that could come into play. Timeline efficiency, y'all, is so important. Having an effective blueprint to your wedding weekend, an effective timeline prevents overtime charges that typically will cost you thousands of dollars. I am not sugarcoating this. If your event is late and your cocktails have to be extended, that comes at a cost. That's not for free. It's not free that you were 30 minutes late to your cocktails because you're 30 minutes late to open your doors, which means you're either taking it from the back end and your party's ending sooner, or you're paying for that additional time. Or your DJ has to stay late. That comes at a cost. Your rental company's there and they're ready to load in the furniture at cocktails, but your cocktail hour is stayed taken longer than you thought. Now you're having to pay for overtime for that labor to have to wait to strike their inventory. So running behind, not having an effective timeline, not having an effective manager to make sure that those things run efficiently are going to directly cost you money. And having an effective planner can be a direct cost savings to those scenarios not taking place. Let's also talk about value enhancement, right? So experience elevation, creating spaces for fully present moments and memories that are worth the cost. So ultimately, again, talking back to being that cohesive design, being that glue to hold the vendor pieces together to make sure that you have a look that really feels elevated and feels cohesive to what you intended it for it to look like. Stress reduction, right? Preserves your mental health and quite frankly, your relationship, because I feel corny saying this, but I think it's really valid, is that you really are only engaged for such a short period of time. And then after the wedding celebration is over, y'all, you're a wife, you're a husband, right? And that is so wonderful and that's great, but you really only get to be the fiance for such a short period of time. And I think it's such a special moment for couples to be able to bond and connect and talk about their values and their dreams and all the things, right? And you might even be, in the peak of your career, you might be in the middle of a move. Like these are really important times that you need to keep your focus. And ultimately, if you don't have someone to help you plan this event, it can really cause, I just feel like, a lot more stress and strain on your family relationships and on your relationship as an individual. Planning a wedding takes well over 200 plus hours. So let's say that you are in the height of your career and you're making, I don't know, $800 to $1,200 an hour. Whatever it is, right? Whatever you are making hourly, break that down for yourself. If you are choosing to plan your own occasion, you're actually wasting a lot of your valuable time not hiring someone else to manage this for you. It's actually costing you more money that you're putting, because how you value your time, you're spinning your wheels and spending your time, and it's actually costing you more money to have somebody else manage that investment for you would be, in my opinion, like a better opportunity cost. Right? You could be doing other things with your time. Insurance value. So I feel that wedding planners definitely bring a sense of insurance policy against like wedding day disasters. When problems arise, they have backup plans in place. They have vendor relationships that are going to pull through from them. And ultimately, they're able to solve things pretty quickly and usually pretty cost effectively as well. So just in general, I think that's another thing worth considering. Okay, so I know that was a ton of information and I really meant to break this down into two parts, but I just wanted to just cram your brain with all the info on the ROI. If I haven't sold hiring a vendor partner enough, DM me. We will have a personal conversation about it. But the bottom line is when you're hiring a wedding planner, it really isn't just an expense. It's an investment that I feel pays dividends in money saved, stress reduced, and memories that have been protected. So couples who get the best ROI from their wedding budgets aren't the ones who spend the most. They're the ones who invest wisely in professional guidance that maximize every dollar and every moment. So your ROI decision framework is to ask yourself, do you want to be the project manager of your wedding weekend, or do you want to be the guest of honor at your own celebration? If you're investing significant money into your wedding, you deserve to actually enjoy what you've paid for. And that requires somebody whose job it is to make sure everything works perfectly while you focus truly on what matters most. So thank you so much again for listening. If you're ready to stop worrying about wedding logistics and you want to start just enjoying your engagement in general, check us out on Instagram at EventrixW to learn more about our planning services. Remember, your wedding investment is too important to leave to chance. Invest in the experts that protect everything else that you've invested in. Until next time, plan wisely and celebrate fully. Thank you.